Something I really love about podiatry is that since we're all doing the same specialty, it's a similar feeling to how I felt at Stevens, where it's very collaborative. It's such a small, tight-knit community. You are not going to just be a number. Everyone knows you there. They know you by name. They don't just know you as a student, but they know you as a person.
Hi, today's guest is a recent graduate and current medical student. Please welcome Paulina. Welcome to Find Your Flock.
Hi, Sandra. Thank you for having me.
So great to have you here. I know we know each other, but perhaps we can start off with you introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about where you're from and what you studied at Stevens.
Sure. So I'm from Washington, New Jersey, about like an hour 15 out of Hoboken. I first visited Stevens my junior year of high school because I was looking to play field hockey in college. And funnily enough, I really did not want to stay in New Jersey, but we had a family friend who went to Stevens and she always told me such great things. My parents were kind of pushing me to go look at this school, and I'll never forget that rainy Tuesday that I first visited Stevens. You could barely see the skyline, but I fell in love with the school right away and every other school compared to Stevens. So I committed there for field hockey, and I later joined the Stevens community August of 2020. I majored in chemical biology, and I also completed my master's at Stevens, also in chemical biology, and now I'm currently at the New York College of Podiatric Medicine.
Amazing. So I know I don't even know where to start. Maybe let's start with how do we get prepared for like a medical journey? What course selection or maybe the pre-health advising cohort, but did any of those things kind of help you? Did you always know you wanted to go, a medical route?
So I always kind of knew I wanted to do something in medicine. I know I mentioned I'm in podiatry school. I originally had my eyes set on dentistry. So I had told all my pre-health advisors that I wanted to do dental school. So they were all super helpful at Stevens. They got me set up with all the courses I needed to take. One of the big reasons I actually was drawn to chemical biology as a major was because it covered all my prereqs. So we every single year we kind of made sure like, okay, like I'm taking all my required courses. I'm getting ready to take my DAT, which is the dental admission test. So it's like the dental school version of the MCAT. And yeah, so they just kind of helped me along the way with that. And it was like so easy to make sure I had all my requirements done with the help of the committee.
That's amazing. I know you were also an athlete, and you were involved in the Student Government Association, and you were busy on campus. So how was it trying to balance sort of that pre-health, commitment plus your course rigor and also sports? So tell us how that was like as a student athlete and also, pre-health student.
Sure. One of the things that I really love most about Stevens is the community we have over there. I was surrounded by such driven people, so, like between the field hockey girls, people in the student government, like everyone was not only involved in like one thing, they were involved all throughout campus. So they really motivated me to stay on track and like stay with my like studies and like we would all like support each other like on and off the field or in and out of the SGA office. So I think a big thing was, they really motivated me, and also just being like really strict about my schedule. So especially with like something like college athletics, it really is your whole life in season. But our coach did a really good job of making sure our grades were where they needed to be, that we were attending study hall hours, that we were getting extra help with professors or tutors. So sticking to a clear schedule was what really helped me. And again, I really couldn't do it without like all my friends and student government and my teammates.
That's amazing. Yeah, our athletes are often some of our best students. I don't think there is really a stigma here that athletes aren't as aggressive on the field as they are in the lab and in the classroom. Um,
Definitely.
I know, preparing for those medical exams, the DAT, the MCAT, right?
Yes.
MCAT, I think that's what people say. So what was challenging about those exams? What worked? What did you wish you knew earlier about, preparing kind of for those exams?
I think so. Stevens does a really good job in your like course curriculum of covering some of like the main foundational knowledge you need to have to take those exams. So I think something I wish like I knew and like I know like other like friends said was like really taking advantage of those classes and getting that base like solid foundation. So that way when you come to actually preparing for these exams, you don't feel like you're relearning and rather you're just reviewing. I know a lot of people use like private tutoring or they were able to use some like online databases to study. But like a big piece of advice I would say is when you're studying for an exam like that, you should really like block out like a good like 3, 4 months to really devote yourself to that studying. I found it hard to study during the semester because semester gets so busy between classes and extracurriculars. But a lot of my friends and I studied in the summer, so some of us would like have some internship or we would do research over the summer, and then we'd also just take that time to study. So really just blocking out that time for yourself, setting a date for the test, and just going in knowing that you gave it your all.
So that's step one, I think, for a lot of the for application process. I know
Mhm.
sometimes the medical school application process can feel very overwhelming. What did that process look like for you? How did you end up in podiatry school? And how did you stay organized and supported through the ups and downs of that process?
So again, I always knew I wanted to do something in healthcare. So um all like our pre-health advisors were super helpful with making sure I stayed on track with like requirements when I was taking my DAT, things I was involved in extracurricular wise. So they were super helpful. But for me, so I had applied during the 2024-2025 cycle. So I was had just graduated from my undergrad and was starting my master's at Stevens. And I am a very type A person. Like once I know I want to do something, I'm like, okay, I'm going to commit to this. So I had like learned about dentistry. I'd shadowed a dentist and I was like, this seems really awesome. I think I would love this. I just kind of stuck with it. So I applied to dental school a little bit later in the cycle. It's rolling admissions. So the thing with that gets a little tricky with that is that like the cycle will open in June, but it closes in December. But the first round of applicants start to interview in like August or so. So I didn't interview until January of like 2025. So by the time I interviewed, they had basically already filled up spots. So I was kind of at the point where I was like, I'm probably just gonna reapply the next year, like we'll see what happens. But then I got a really cool opportunity. So one of the schools that I applied to Toro's dental school. And they have a bunch of different professional schools. They have DO schools, they have pharmacy schools, law schools, and they've recently just merged with the New York College of Podiatric Medicine. So they were allowing students who had applied to their dental school to transfer the application over to their podiatry school. And honestly, I didn't even know that podiatry was its own separate school. So when I got that email, I was like, again, I was so set on dentistry that I was like, oh, like, what is this? Like, I'm gonna delete it. But then I started reading into it, and as a lifelong athlete, like, I started reading more up on podiatry, and I noticed how much they do in sports medicine, how all podiatrists do surgical residencies. Surgery was always something that really interested me. They work a lot with the diabetic community. Something that was also important to me was working with the special needs community, which they do a lot of work in too. So it kind of started to check off all the boxes. And I said to myself, you know what? Let me meet with some of my pre-health advisors, see what they think about this, do some research, shadow podiatrist, interview, see if I even get in. And I did all of that, and that's kind of what ended up leading me to make that decision.
I love that. I love when preparedness and luck kind of come together,
Yes,
and open like a door that you didn't even know existed.
definitely.
My mom has a podiatrist, and we just love him, and he had to do a foot surgery and stuff on her. So yeah, definitely. He was very ex I mean, podiatrists get really excited when they get to do surgeries.
Yes.
Not everything needs surgical intervention, but he was like very jazzed up about her foot surgery. But that's so awesome.
Thank you.
I mean, I think for all of our students, we want you guys to find stuff that you're good at, you're interested in, you have passion around. And I think sometimes it's great when we can, like, not even realize that this would be something that we'd be really interested in and good at. So that's so
Definitely.
awesome.
Thank you.
So I know you're a first year student now, and we're talking during spring break so that you actually have a break from classes. I think they keep you
Yes.
pretty busy. Do you want to tell us a little bit what the first year has been like, and do you feel like you were prepared? And how's it going?
Yeah, definitely. So I love it so far. I've met some really great people. Like something I really love about podiatry is that since we're all doing the same specialty, it's a similar like feeling to how I felt at Stevens, where it's very collaborative, which I really love. Like everyone is truly there to help one another because our end goal is all to be in the same profession. So very collaborative. Um, it is definitely very academically rigorous, like any other medical program would be. But I will say something that has really stood out to me was all like the training and the classes that I took at Stevens, especially in my master's and also being involved in research. I felt like I had a very smooth transition into podiatry school. I had multiple professors asking me like where I went to my undergrad, and every time I mentioned Stevens, everyone was super impressed. So, Stevens really, really prepared me to hit the ground running in a lot of these classes. Like, I had so many classes that I had already seen the material before. It was familiar because I had taken a similar course at Stevens. So it's definitely challenging. They're long days. Right now we're in like a pretty like tough block. We're doing anatomy, we're in neuro, physio, a bunch of classes, but like I really feel like between all of the academic experience that I got at Stevens, along with like the extracurriculars, which like really helped me with those soft skills, I felt really prepared going into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love to hear that, especially because I know sometimes we wonder why we push so hard with students being involved in extracurriculars because it really does help develop, those skills and make you more adaptable in these newer situations where you're starting over and making new friends and having new relationships with professors and, new learning, new ways of content and, you know, all of that. So that's wonderful.
Definitely.
I know you mentioned that some of your research experience has been currently helping with your medical training. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the research you were able to do at Stevens? Um,
For sure, yeah. So I was in Dr. Imanicki's cellular biology lab. I was really fortunate to be involved in his lab from my sophomore year until actually my master's. So his lab deals with ovarian cancer. So my project specifically looked at a treatment option for ovarian cancer. So basically, we were able to look at the cell type that was resistant to a certain ovarian cancer treatment. And we saw that this protein was upregulated in that treatment. So, or in that cell. So we basically, I was able to work with this company called Olipass. They developed these peptide nucleic acids, and essentially they kind of interfere with the machinery of the cell and the like RNA translation into the protein. So I was able to work with them to come up with a specific sequence and then treat those cells to basically diminish the protein that was causing these mutations to not allow it to be susceptible to the treatment. So I was able to work on that project for about 3 years. And I think the big thing with that project was things I was learning in class were finally like kind of starting to make more sense because I was seeing it in a real world application. So even now, like we'll learn about different laboratory techniques, and I have experience actually using those techniques. So it makes the learning a lot easier. And I also think research is really great because it just helps like the way you learn to think. So with like this medical training, obviously, you have to look at things from a bunch of different angles, and sometimes some things might not be as they seem. So I think research is really important for like training your mind to learn how to think differently.
that's awesome. Um, Amazing. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to reflect at all about, your time as, as a varsity field hockey captain, or if you want to reflect on your time as president of the Student Government Association. These are some of the ways I know that we've connected over the course of the 4 years that we've been here, and it's been lovely watching, you have your next steps here. But yeah, I don't know if you want to reflect at all about any of those times. You know, Field hockey captain or SGA president. I'm
Sure.
sure they had equal amounts of leadership and probably positive and negative experiences, but
Yeah,
good.
definitely. So, um, it's funny, like I always tell people, like when I first came to Stevens, like I came during COVID. So there was barely any like on-campus things happening at the time. Like we really had like I think I just had like my chem lab in person, which I was like always so excited to go to. But if you were to tell me back then that I would have been like student government president or would have ended up being captain of the field hockey team, like I genuinely would have never believed you. I was more like shy and reserved like growing up. And something that like I really loved about Stevens is I really feel like everyone like finds their place there and finds their niche. And for me, I kind of just like applied to student government on the whim, on a whim. Like we got an email about first year senators applying, and I was like, you know what? Like, let me just give this a try. Like, why not? And I really just fell in love with it. I loved how student government you could be involved in basically every facet of campus. I got to work with so many different people in administration. I, of course, got to work with you, which was amazing. I love that I could work in campus wellness, like helping make like certain buildings on campus more accessible. We worked to increase like school pride for different athletic games. We would do like Stevens SJ sponsored games. And a big thing through it all for me was all like the teamwork that actually went along with like all these big initiatives that we were planning. I'm still such good friends with so many people that I was involved with in SGA today. Like one of my best friends, Alex Stanzak, he's the previous SGA president now. Like we've been like running a bunch of marathons together. So like I think the big thing with all these, including like varsity field hockey, is like the lifelong friendships I made out of it. And like you mentioned, like extracurriculars are so huge for building your soft skills. So as much as I learned in the classroom, I think I learned even more being a captain or being an SGA president because I was able to advocate for myself and others. I worked on time management, I worked on teamwork, communication skills. Those are all things that I don't know that I would have been able to learn in the classroom and I needed to like actually experience. So I was so grateful for both those experiences. I like miss Stevens so much. I loved it. I wouldn't change my decision to go to Stevens at all.
Oh, well, we miss you too. Such a bright face. Although I do work a
Thank
lot
you.
with the current SGA president as well. So love that our students get to, participate in their own governing and, have some, say in what happens around here. It's always so fun. I think we always like to end this question like, um, what advice would you like to give to an incoming Stevens students? A lot of our audience is maybe in their first year or even thinking about applying to Stevens. So why the CCE, why the CCB department? And what advice for a pre-health student interested possibly for CCB?
Definitely. So for why the CCB department, I would say it's such a small, tight-knit community. You are not going to just be a number. Everyone knows you there. They know you by name. They don't just know you as a student, but they know you as a person. So you will be fully supported there. And like I mentioned, my path really wasn't linear. And I think that's something that you shouldn't be worried about. Um, I I was involved in a lot at Stevens, and there was a lot of highs, but there were definitely lows. And I think I wouldn't change a single thing about it because through those lows, I really learned so much and I grew as a person. So just because your path might not be linear doesn't mean you're not on the right track. Lean on your support system. The CCB department is an incredible support system. I still am in touch with all of them today. And you really can't go wrong if you choose Stevens and you choose the CCB department. And yeah, I feel like that's basically it. But don't be afraid if your path isn't linear.
Do you have a favorite shout out to somebody in the chemical biology department, chemical biology department?
Ugh, I there's so many great ones. I would have to give a shout out probably to I have to do like three. Dr. Wong, Dr. Meisner, and Dr. Windsor. They were
Amazing.
all incredible professors. They truly, truly cared about you, not just as a student, but as a person. And I really couldn't have done it without them. And
Awesome.
also special shout out to Dr. Lombardi. He was amazing.
Aw, he is amazing. They're all amazing. One of
Yes,
my coziest departments. Thank you so much for joining us, Paulina. That is all the time we have for today. I do want to thank you for stopping in on your spring break,
of course.
and imparting some knowledge to our incoming and first year students that are worried about their paths and are still finding their flocks. Thanks for joining, and don't forget to check out our other episodes. Click subscribe and share.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Find Your Flock, Season 2. I'm Dr. Sandra Clavijo. Thanks for joining us as we help future ducks find their path at Stevens. Don't forget to follow and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, and share this episode with a future duck.